My name is Sikivu Hutchinson, and this is the Black Girl's Guide to Humanism. And today we're going to be talking with one recipient of our Black Skeptics First in the Family Humanist Scholarship Awards about her perspective on being a first-generation college student, and really perspectives about secular young people of color in academic and community spaces where secular Black and Latinx young people are often invisible. Just an overview. These youth are among the approximately 60 students who have received scholarships since the creation of the program in 2013 with the generous support of the Freedom from Religion Foundation and the Bredvold Fund. And we created the scholarship awards to provide support for first-generation secular students of color who are queer, foster care, unhoused, undocumented, and system or justice involved. And although there are a number of secular scholarship programs being offered at the national level, there really are no dedicated secular scholarship programs that are exclusively for BIPOC youth from vulnerable communities. And these culturally specific targeted resources are even more critical given the Trump regime's racist assault on affirmative action, DEI, and targeted financial aid for students of color. And so if we contextualize this and look at the demographics on secularism, millennials and Gen Z youth are driving the national trend toward irreligiosity. And according to some data, among 18 to 25-year-olds, 49% of women are non-religious, compared to just 46% of men. And among that group, the vast majority are spiritual but not religious. Additionally, according to the Pew Research Center, over the past decade, the share of African Americans who say that they have no religious affiliation has risen more dramatically than whites, Hispanics/Latinx folks, or Asians, which is interesting to note given how historically religious African American communities have been, with approximately 85% of Black women subscribing to faith-based belief, according to a Kaiser Family Foundation survey. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our Black Skeptics First in the Family Humanist Awardee from 2025, KeVonna Dixon. She is from Carolina Coast University. She is a criminal justice major with a pre-law minor, aspiring to be a human rights lawyer. Amazing. And her academic interests focus on social inequality, system reform, and human rights. And I'd like to introduce as well Monica Burns, who will be my co-host in this effort. And Monica is an amazing organizer since moving to Louisville in 1998. She's been an active member of the Louisville Atheists and Freethinkers and the American Humanist Association. Her commitment to the local non-religious community further extended in 2017 when she became the former lead organizer for the Louisville affiliate of Black Nonbelievers, creating a vital space for people of color transitioning away from religion. This crucial initiative provided a much-needed sanctuary for people of color navigating the complexities of leaving religion and addressing the specific experiences of being Black and non-religious in America. Monica's influence also extended to the airwaves as a past co-host of Blasphemy in the Bluegrass, a weekly podcast advocating for the separation of church and state. Her expertise has been sought after at numerous events, including the Tri-State Freethinkers, the Kentucky Freethought Convention, the Nashville Nuns Convention, and BNCCon. Currently on sabbatical following a period marked by scandal and a lack of broader movement support, Monica is taking a break from her active involvement in the atheist movement. Okay, and good morning to you both. So, again, really appreciate y'all being ready, willing, and able to discuss this incredibly important issue. KeVonna, I just wanted to ask you about the impact of the scholarship on your transition into college. Has it been impactful for you as a Black secular youth?
Yeah, this scholarship has been super important and super beneficial and significant to me as a Black secular youth, because not only did it, help me with my financial pressures as I am a first generation independent student, so I have to put my payment for tuition in every month. But it also just helps. It really recognized and helped me stand firm in that I'm doing what I want do in life, and I'm standing firm in my beliefs and what I stand for, and to be recognized as a Black secular youth, just it really affirmed me to keep thinking and keep having these independent thoughts, and just keep asking questions.
Yeah. And I would like to say, thank you to Sikivu for even, putting all this together, because, I think it's important for us as secular people to take care of our community too. Because I think in a lot of instances, everyone thinks that any kind of charitability or any kind of, donating or anything like that always comes from the church. Everyone thinks that the church is the only place that takes care of its people, and I think it's important for the secular community to step up and do that for our youth, because otherwise they won't have it. They won't have it at all, and they need it just as much as any child that's been indoctrinated. So.
Yeah, I want to wholeheartedly agree with that, because oftentimes we find that youth like KeVonna, that are skeptical, that are questioning, that are challenging, may not have any other outlet other than churches and faith-based institutions, because they are so prominent and often so dominating in our communities. So for us to step up as Black secular humanist folks, as progressive folks, as folks that are committed to advancing educational justice and redressing anti-Black racism, white supremacy, and misogynoir in the educational system is really important. I know that we were going to talk about the context of the socio-political backlash against our communities, Monica, and I believe you had a question about that.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I'm kind of missing it.
Oh, I'm thinking about the question that we discussed about the context of backlash against secular communities.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a scary time right now, because I have seen, so much online about the Trump administration wanting to crack down on what people, anybody that's anti-Christian, they call it anti-patriotic, all these things or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that's going to come for the Black community and certainly the secular community. And that's part of the thing where, we talked about my podcast work that we did with Blasphemy in the Bluegrass. We're not actually, currently recording ever since he took office. And I remember in a post, I asked, are we still doing this or whatever? And that, we have to keep going or whatever. But there were people that are genuinely afraid, and I can't blame them or whatever. I would worry about my family as well in that. But it's kind of disheartening, because that's exactly what they want us to do, is to sit down, be fearful, and be quiet.
Exactly. Yeah. And what do you think about that, KeVonna, in terms of what does being secularly identified mean to you in this moment of social and political upheaval?
Right.
I'd agree. Right now, we're seeing more oppression, more violence, and more polarization, and definitely more misinformation. And it's just being exonerated. It's forced for us to believe. And especially since we're really living in a political climate where we're not separating these church and state ideas, and it's just running rampant. So secularism offers this framework for just thinking irrationally and ethically. And it's just allowed me personally, I've gotten to a few protests, and it's just allowed me to advocate for justice based on these human values and not religious interests. Especially in this political climate where freedom of speech is being oppressed. So
eroded.
Yeah, most definitely. And
I think that they, the thing about this administration is that, they are completely antithetical to separate. They openly say they do not want a separation of church and state, and that inherently is going to cut your free speech. As a secular person, if you don't believe what they believe, then you have to be quiet.
Yeah, And that's been the mandate of Project 2025, as we know. I mean, that is in black and white, clearly articulated that they want to abolish the Establishment Clause, that they want this to be a theocracy, a Christian theocracy. So
I had a hard time getting the secular community to actually believe that Project 2025 was a thing. They really thought that it was the same as, past Heritage Foundation things where it was just like, oh, they always do that. They always say this, they always say that. And then you saw, like you're seeing Trump say he hadn't read it, he wasn't going to use it and all these things as he slowly brings in all the architects of Project 2025. Yeah. So it's like, I don't see that they completely dismissed it, and many of them moved away from, and I'm not advocating for who anybody should have voted for or anything, but they completely moved to other parties in order to, not, I think I'm going way off the rails here, but, they were voting for things that, just didn't translate. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I was going to get into Gaza, but I don't think we should do that today. So,
well, but it's all relevant in terms of the backlash against human rights and civil rights, and obviously, if we look at the really devastating impact of the dismantling or the attempt to totally dismantle the Department of Education, that's going to have a really huge impact on KeVonna and her peers, as far as financial aid, as far as loans, as far as access to multicultural curricula, and it's just again part of that blueprint of 2025, Project 2025, that this is something that they made clear that they were going to implement as soon as Trump hit office, that they were going to dismantle all of these protections that folks fought and died for. So,
I think the Department of Education is a complete, they already eroded education as it is, but it is so strategic, and our youth are going to suffer. They're going to suffer. I know that they're talking about, here in Jefferson County in Louisville, Kentucky, they're going to run out of money in the next year or two. And the federal government is not funding them anymore because they want to dismantle Department of Education, and they don't want to fund these schools. And so we're going to have a problem with our youth, like, that are coming up behind KeVonna.
Yeah, the most vulnerable. Right. I mean, students with disabilities, for example, have been protected, under the aegis of the Department of Education. Students that are being criminalized are black and brown students, queer students. So it's, again, practically apocalyptic what we're facing. But on that note, KeVonna, in terms of identification, if you identify as a humanist, how is that label or identity relevant to you as a young person of color, or any other identifications that you associate with?
Well, for me, I've always believed that moral worth is inherent and it's not granted. So me being a young queer black woman, humanism, it really allows space to reason and show empathy instead of from just religious faith. It really honors the aspect of having intersectionality in these discussions and recognizing struggle across race, gender, and sexual identities. It's like a different perspective on narratives when we're denied having these perspectives on religion.
Yeah, I think that humanism that you've embodied gives you more of I'm not going to say they're not moral, but it gives you more of a moral compass because it allows you to bring more people under your tent. And take care of more people, as opposed to when you've got this, dry parchment paper telling you these people are good, these people are bad,
exactly.
That, it's completely, that's actually immoral to me to sit there and tell people these people are bad, these people are good, shut them out and bring them in. And when you're a humanist, you're fighting for the rights of all people, not just those that have like-minded views as you. It's been a big problem. That was even a problem under secularism, I think transgender people, that was just, they want to fight for, in the secular community, they want to fight for who they want to fight for. And then they're like, shutting the door on other people. And it's like, no, if you're going to fight for the rights of people, that's all people. Trans people, that's everybody. That's everybody. If we can get rights for trans people, the rest of us have rights at that point. If you're going to marginalize someone, then it doesn't stop there. Then they start to chip away at the rights of others after that.
Yeah, it's only a battle worth fighting until it makes them uncomfortable.
100%. 100%. Well said.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to note that African American progressive humanists have always underscored that intersectionality is critical.
Right.
Have always taken issue with the Eurocentric and white supremacist emphasis within mainstream humanist movements that have totally basically minimized anti-black racism, institutional racism, anti-black sexism. These have never been like main issues within the mainstream Eurocentric humanist movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only been, again, through the efforts of black secularists, well, progressive and radical black secularists, that these issues have been amplified and have been prioritized.
Mm-hmm.
So, KeVonna, as far as your experience is concerned, have you come across other Gen Z youth that are questioning and seeking out alternatives to organized religion?
Oh, absolutely. I think now we're in a time where we're seeing like the rise of conservatism and Christianity. But when I think of Gen Z, I think they're really on the fence when it comes to like systems than other generations. I think we're reevaluating these inherited belief systems. We're exploring these secular humanist worldviews as a moral framework. We're searching for meaning grounded in factuality and justice and things we've lived off, these lived experiences. Because like I was saying earlier, I know when I started questioning and stuff, it was like banished. I wasn't supposed to be questioning these things. And for me, it just made me keep questioning. Because, being a Black woman, it's like I'm betraying my community or my culture that my family's been rooted in. So for Black people and people of color, I think the expectations that faith is something that we need to rely on, and it's need to build our resilience. I think it's something that we're supposed to lean on, even if we don't believe in ourselves, because we group it as our identity. And I think when we navigate through these spaces with such deep emotional labor and intellectual clarity, we question these things, and these things need to be questioned. So I definitely think Gen Z is starting to wake up, and they're starting to question, hey, all these things are happening, but what do we do? Especially with Christianity. I have a couple of friends. We have these conversations. We just sit down and we have these conversations about religion, and we think back to like slavery and when these things were indoctrinated and how slaves couldn't read, but they were given Bibles. And it's just these simple frameworks of what we think, and it's giving us that leeway to question these things and understand, well, if a slave and the slave owner is praying, whose prayers are being answered? And it just really gives us this space to like not feel judged when we ask these questions.
What age were you when you began, or can you kind of remember around what age you were when you began questioning?
Well, I've always been in church my whole life, but it wasn't until like 2015, my brother had passed, and I was really having a lot of questions because I started to see my aunt on my mom's side. She started to like stray away from the church, but my grandma was getting more heavily influenced, and I've always questioned my grandma. I think she's not the direct reflection of what somebody who believes in religion is. But it wasn't until my brother's passing where I started questioning. Well, I was like, well, maybe I'm not religious. And then, I started questioning it, and I just got in spaces like we started going to church heavily more. So I just got in spaces where people were talking, but like everything was seeming judgmental and everything was like disgusting. Like I'll never forget, I was sitting in a sermon and my sister was talking about getting baptized, and my grandma looks over to me and she's like, well, you should do that too, just in case anything happens to you. I know you'll be safe with the Lord. And I just started to question, like, what is the purpose? And of course I went to my sister with these questions, because she's super religious, but they were just answers like, well, you should, they were answers like, well, because you need to. And like, no, that's not enough for me. I've always been like, I need an explanation. I need the science behind it. I need to understand why. You can't just tell me because you need to, because that's going to make me question more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that actually leads us to like one of the last questions that I'm curious about. What kind of responses have you gotten from your communities, particularly your family and others that are close to you, when you profess a secular or humanist identity to them? Have you gotten pushback?
Yeah, so me and my uncle, we don't speak anymore because of that. Like we haven't had a good conversation in a while. And I didn't realize that until he started texting everybody like what their favorite Bible verse was. And I never got the text, and I was like, oh, well, so we haven't spoken in years. Me and my sister, I've seen her shift to like conservatism, and it's been a crazy thing to witness, because for me, what I stand in is I'm a Black woman before anything, and it's just so crazy to see my sister have these people that she idolizes that are very anti-Black, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So I think it wasn't a couple months ago I had found out that my sister's like taking this conservative path along with her religion, so we haven't really spoken. Me and my grandma, we don't talk at all. And same with my mom, she's always tried to like pressure me back into the church and say, well, you need something to rely on. But I would say me and my brothers are really the only people who have really accepted the fact that it's okay to question. My twin brother, he's also a questioner, but he's also heavily based in, he's in the phase where he's understanding other religions and he's learning about other religions, but he's also a questioner. And my older brother is religious, but he knows there's an extent to what it means to him. He doesn't rely, like, his religion's very in the background, very progressive. So I would just say, I think and we're like all younger generation, we're all Gen Z. So I think, I don't think I know my family is not like very keen of it, but yeah.
It's people like you in particular that were the reason that I started the organization I did here. Because in a lot of instances, people's family they can't take it. Some of them get completely cut off, and some of them, the relationship just becomes completely strained. Whereas you thought you had this person that is supposed to be like, when your mom said you need something to lean on, it's like, well, that was supposed to be you. And it's like, because I don't believe the same thing that you do, you can't be, what you were before to me now, for that reason. And so that's why we actually, need organizations like what we had here, and that, other organizations in order for people to have a place, a soft landing pad and some other people to be able to talk to and call and just have community with, because, especially I was telling KeVonna earlier before we started recording, especially with us being in the South. And I know I'm sure it's not that easy in the North or in the West, but in the South, being Black and being secular. I'm originally from Georgia. You said originally from North Carolina and in South Carolina now, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
now I'm in Kentucky. So it can be very isolating, for a person that's Black and a non-believer or atheist or agnostic or anything. And I think people like KeVonna, myself included, when I came out, I joined white organizations. There was a lot of like, oh, this is, this is nice to have people who are like-minded in atheism. They can't exactly relate to leaving the Black church. It's an entirely different thing. When, as you said, I think KeVonna earlier, it's a part of our identity to be especially Christian.
Yeah, and I think, absolutely, and I think that KeVonna, I mean, you really underscored it when you said I'm a Black woman first. Yes. So when we're anything that we are trying to create as Black women has to have that foundation to it. That has to be affirming of our identities, of our social history, of our lived experiences as Black women. So that's why forging these organizations within like a Black feminist or Black womanist perspective is really important. I want to thank both of you because this has really been a very stimulating and enriching discussion. And KeVonna, I just want to wish you all the best as you continue in your path and trajectory, forging your way as a strong young Black secular humanist thinker and scholar and activist. And we are very excited to see what you do next. Blossoming as a human rights lawyer. That's really awesome.
It really is.
And then Monica, of course, thank you so much for your perspectives and your leadership in the community and your vision as a writer, as an organizer, as an activist.